Well, we can speak now to Hassan Asfour, who is a senior Oslo-era negotiator for the Palestinian Liberation Organization, who took part in the Camp David negotiations in 2000. So you were also a member of the Palestinian National Council between the years 1984 to 2018. Thank you very much indeed for being with us here on Arabiya English. Indirect talks between Hamas and Israel are taking place in Egypt. President Trump is urging everyone to move fast. Does it look to you like there is now the momentum to turn this 20-point plan into reality?
First of all, my greetings to you and to your viewers, and I also pay tribute to the martyrs of the Palestinian people and to the sacrifices that have been made for the Palestinian people. Apparently, it is the first time that we see this scale of international momentum, not only after this 2 years of the war. Since 2007, there has been no serious movements about the Palestinian cause at all. It is the first time that we see the whole world at large, including Iran, that have been supporting the political move toward reaching an end to the genocide in Gaza. The content of this peace plan is still ambiguous, and it looks like it is quite unorthodox. It is intended to stop the genocide, and hopefully it will create an opportunity. However, this opportunity is not linked with the Palestinian entity. It focuses on the Gaza Strip having a transitional phase and under an international custody headed by the board peace, and also there should be some Palestinian participation. So it is a kind of unprecedented rule, even from the experience of Iraq during the era of Bremer. We haven't seen this complicated kind of rule, but the momentum that we see now in order to respond with this plan and to stop the genocide is quite substantial, where everyone seems just to be supporting this initiative, but nobody is just talking about the details. Until now, President Trump has laid out a plan about the redeployment within the Gaza Strip. And he's talking about a yellow line. But during the yellow line stage, there are many questions to be asked. Who will be ruling that area if the Israeli forces will withdraw? Whether there will be any other forces also there, or a civilian administration or transitional administration. So there are many complex issues that have to be resolved. I think this momentum is mainly linked to stop the genocide more than it is about the content of this peace plan.
Okay, so you make a lot of important points there, sir. Clearly, the momentum is there, as you say. This is, as you said as well, an unorthodox approach. Well, until now, nothing else has worked, so perhaps that's a good sign as well. But let me ask you, despite your reservations, were you surprised that Hamas partially agreed to this 20-point plan?
In my personal capacity, no, I wasn't surprised, because it's not up to Hamas. Even the statement that has been released, it wasn't by Hamas. When the team of from Turkey met with their counterparts in Egypt and Qatar, they have issued that. Therefore, it wasn't a coincidence by President Trump to thank President Erdogan for his effort in order to get the approval from Hamas. But we can remember how he thanked Turkey, especially for their efforts after Hamas approval. And he said Turkey played a very important role in order to put the pressure on Hamas. Hamas has been doomed to agree, and everyone who knows Hamas, they know that this is not the language that Hamas speak. Hamas has been doomed just to accept that. Even the leadership of Hamas have not understood the content of the peace plan, which delved just into many details, such as the peace board. They believe that this is only a formal matter, but we are talking about an integrated approach for ruling Gaza. It is not like just answering question by yes and or no. So therefore, it was just a kind of it wasn't a kind of surprise because it wasn't issued by Hamas at all.
It's interesting to see who's present in Cairo, taking part in the negotiations. There's the U.S. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff. There's Jared Kushner, who is the president's son-in-law. There's the Qatari foreign minister. It's a wide-ranging and almost unlikely casting for negotiation. Do you think the right people are in place?
In
principle, yes. I think that with the dreamer representing Netanyahu personally, and I suppose that he will be joining the talks tomorrow. So Kushner, remember, he was the mastermind of this plan. And it all started in February 2024. And Kushner just was the one who orchestrated everything. And this means that this plan was just envisioned even before the war started in Gaza. And this indicates that there is something way just bigger in terms of the scale that for those events that have been happening. And that's why the talks have not only began recently, but I think that the momentum that we have been seeing recently is exceptional. And now everyone is asking about the details, especially that Turkey, Egypt, and Qatar have really put real efforts into this momentum. And Israel has to agree at the end of the day. But everyone who believes that Israel might really disagree, then nobody understands the real equation. Netanyahu, remember, has deceived many American presidents, and I just witnessed this by myself when he cheated President Clinton, and therefore the United States just decided just to bring it to an end. And therefore we hope that history will not repeat itself. And now remember that Netanyahu's just position inside the government is quite fragile. And I believe the talks that are starting in Sharm el-Sheikh could really steer the way for President Trump in order to implement the peace plan as announced yesterday.
Okay, I just wonder what you think Hamas is going to do with regards to the hostages. Do you anticipate all of them being released, or do you think Hamas will decide in the first instance to release only some of them?
Hamas can never manipulate with this plan because the first item states that all hostages should be released. Even though that Hamas might find some pretext talking about the situation on the ground, but now Trump personally believes that this is the crux of the whole peace deal, and it is the important point to release the hostages, especially that he is keeping an eye on the Nobel Peace Prize that is expected to take place in Oslo on Friday. But it is not an easy process. Hamas does not have just a stationary organization. They have some branches in Egypt, others in Qatar, and those who are inside Gaza. And therefore, the cost will be quite hefty in case Hamas just tries to manipulate with this approach.
Okay, and if on the Israeli side, the hostages are freed, but Israel continues bombarding Gaza, what sort of a response do you think that will trigger from the rest of the world, in particular the Arab world?
It will be really tragic, and this is what I mentioned in my article, which was released last week. It is the first time ever I see negotiations at this scale and at this momentum, where the assurance is only the statement of President Trump. We don't have any assurances at all here, except that it is only President Trump who is the chairman of the board peace and who is the orchestrator of this peace. And now, if we are just to make a statue for President Trump as the days of pharaohs, then he is entitled to receive one. I believe that it is the roadmap of President Trump, but unfortunately there are no assurances except for the verbal statements and the ethics of President Trump, and I don't personally believe that he holds all those good ethics.
And I would like to ask you, the day after holding talks with President Trump and agreeing to the 20-point plan, Prime Minister Netanyahu said there's never going to be a Palestinian state, which is one of the points in the 20-point plan, a pathway to a Palestinian state. What's your interpretation of that?
If you read the peace plan articles, there is no reference to the Palestinian state, but there is also just only a likelihood of establishing the Palestinian state. They are talking about a pathway toward the establishment of a Palestinian state. This is also another vague area from the peace plan. President Trump does not talk about the Palestinian state per se, but is talking about a pathway that could lead to the establishment of the Palestinian state. And this, anyway, could be one of the hurdles that could be placed in the way. And even President Mahmoud Abbas also just flagged this point. We know that there was just a hailing and a welcome by the Palestinian people for to end the genocide and the occupying force. But we don't know at all whether there is really an explicit reference or mentioning to the establishment of the Palestinian state. It is left and it remains to be seen in the future. And this could be one of the serious points that has been ignored or someone has turned blind eye on it.
Okay, and just lastly, before we finish, if this round of talks in Sharm el-Sheikh finishes without any results, what do you think will be the next steps? What happens then?
Let me tell you that it is really hard that this round of talks in Sharm el-Sheikh will end without any tangible result. I think that there must be some kind of a progress. However, there could be some delay in terms of time frame for the implementation. We know that this will not be just a smooth sailing for the leadership of Hamas at all, because all the pressure is now on Hamas, because as the main condition is to release the hostages. But with that said, Hamas, the peace plan has not mentioned on whether just the ceasefire will happen when the hostages are released first, or which one will come first. And therefore, I think that this could be an advantage for Netanyahu so that he could put more pressure on Hamas. And I believe Hamas has to think it twice before it reject the idea, because the price could be heavily as stated by President Trump on the 29th of September.
Okay, well, we really appreciate you speaking to us. We're out of time. Thank you very much indeed. Hassan Asfour, Senior Palestinian Negotiator. Thank you very much indeed for your time, sir.